Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Ring of Fire. Told you it wouldn't be all that long. um, WrestleMania has been and gone, and holy shit. To say that I got angry would be an understatement. So, just so we can actually get into that properly, probably should have had the card up in front of me beforehand, but we'll get into it. I'll briefly touch on the pre-show matches. Because I was uh, being in a pre-recording for a podcast that will air either later in the week or just generally later. It's pre-recorded for later. I missed most of the pre-show, which I didn't really mind. But after the pay-per-view, I went back and watched the matches, at least up to where I didn't see, at least for the Battle Royal. And they weren't terrible, but the Battle Royal bugged me because Axel got eliminated first, and that was just stupid. Because it's like, come on. Do you have to? He's the only one with a story going in. If he didn't win, you could have at least let him last a good while. But no. And Big Show won, and gee, who didn't see that guy? I mean, of all the people that is going to win an Andre the Giant Battle Royal, and I will admit, him winning, well, I'll put it this way. When it got down to him and Mizdow, I was like, okay, yeah, it's probably going to be Big Show. Because, like, how the fuck was he going to throw him over? But, like, I guess the funny thing is, as I said in my predictions video, why should I really care? Because it doesn't matter, because unless they do something with Big Show with it, they never did anything with Cesaro with it. Like, they just sort of had him carried around for a while and then it disappeared and it was never really brought up. It was never used in any meaningful way. I mean, if they just made it where it's like, you win it, hooray, ta-da, that's it, and they didn't make a big deal out of it, then I'd be fine. But they still went on about Cesaro winning the first one, so Really, all I can gather from this is that they just threw Big Show a bone because he's apparently never won a battle royal in his entire career. But anyway, now to the first pre-show match, which was the tag title match. Again, it wasn't bad. It was pretty fun. Jimmy Uso having to do pretty much the entire brunt of the work for the Usos was actually kind of interesting because he held his own. He believably made it seem like he could possibly win this thing on his own. I mean, like, at one point he got a bit of an assist from Naomi, which was pretty cool, where she dove over the top rope onto, I think it was specifically Tyson Kidd and Cesaro, but it could have been like Cesaro and a member of the New Day, or Kidd and a member of the New Day. I can't entirely remember, which is sad because I only watched it a few minutes ago. But yeah, Kidd and Cesaro retain. Hooray. In a match that almost went 10 minutes apparently, but it didn't feel like it. And that's hilarious. Apparently, the Battle Royal was dragged out for 18 minutes and 5 seconds, which makes it the second longest match of the night if you count the pre-show matches along with the overall matches on the main show. Anyway, moving on to the first match of the pay-per-view proper, we have the 7-man, which for some reason I kept thinking it was an 8-man until like right before the pay-per-view and was like, oh, right, it's only 7. But and this was fun, but I don't know, just for some reason I didn't really care too much. Like there was some cool spots, and I'm not saying like, oh, skip it, this is pointless. But you know, it wasn't. I guess it was fairly tame for a ladder match, outside of Dean Ambrose breaking a frigging ladder clean in half. Which, yeah, the ladders these days are made of wood, so of course that's going to happen. And even when they weren't entirely non-wooden, it was more like the steps kind of looked like they were at least some form of metal or steel or whatever, and the actual like thing holding the steps in place portion of the ladder was basically just wood with like metal stuff holding the wood together. And I will admit, Barrett knocking off a rung of that glittery ladder and smacking the crap out of Cody Rhodes with it, or Stardust with it, was pretty fucking funny. Weird, but funny. I'm trying to see if I can remember any other spots. Well, there was Harper doing a suicide dive and taking out pretty much everyone. That was pretty cool. There was quite a few dives, actually. Stardust did his usual trust fall, as I call it, where, you know, he looks like he's going for a springboard move, but instead of like doing an Asai moonsault or something, he just falls backwards, and they catch him, and they just catch him and fall over. So it's essentially a trust fall, turned into a weapon. Brian won, which only bugs me in the sense that I feel like Truth or Stardust or Ambrose should have won. Though now Brian is well, I don't think he can technically be a Grand Slam because the titles that count for Grand Slam, some of them don't exist anymore. But I guess if you go by like the current day version of what a Grand Slam would be, he would be that now. Because he's won every other title available to him. Prior to this, he had won all but the Intercontinental title. He'd won the US, he's been tag champion, he's been World Heavyweight and WWE and WWE World Heavyweight champion. And now he's been Intercontinental champion. Really all I hope from this is that this doesn't just result in Brian losing the title tomorrow. Because let's face it, that could easily happen. The last time Barrett defended a title at WrestleMania, it was on the pre-show, but he lost it to The Miz and then won it back the next night. So, for all we know, we could end up with that. Next up, we had the Randy Orton-Rollins match, which I really didn't think much of. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but for a match that went on for apparently 13 minutes, it really didn't feel like it. In fact, none of these matches felt like they went as long as they actually did. They felt incredibly rushed somehow. Orton beats Rollins with, I will admit, a pretty cool spot where Rollins goes for the curb stomp thing, and Randy basically gets up as he's doing that and somehow launches him into the air and then catches him on the way down with the Narco, and I knew it was over when that happened. I was like, God damn, he kicked out of one, there's no way he's kicking out of that one. So I was like, audibly, I was just like, no, God damn it, no, and I flat out said, fuck you, WWE, when Orton won. But as I will discuss later, I can accept this loss now, but at the time, it was so fucking frustrating. Because Orton didn't need that win. At all. But again, later events in the pay-per-view allow it to work. Or at least allow me to accept it. Triple H versus Sting. Good lord, this match was boring. Like, Jesus Christ. They even bring out DX, as in the New Age Outlaws and X-Pac, and Shawn Michaels for a run-in. The Shawn Michaels one was the only real one that was like, that actually caught me off guard, because I was like, okay, it's all of DX except Chyna and Shawn Michaels. And we know we're not going to get Chyna. So, and then when Shawn Michaels shows up, it's like, wow. And we also get, if I didn't already mention it, the NWO do a run-in. As in the original the original trio for the NWO of Hogan, Hall, and Nash. And Hogan, Hall, and Nash beating the shit out of X-Pac, Road Dogg, and Billy Gunn was just kind of hard to watch, because it's like, come on. Nash I could maybe believe, but Hogan, no. Especially when later Hogan's just sort of standing around and X-Pac just shoves him into the friggin' ring post, which I kind of chuckled about and was actually cheered him for that. And then we get fucking... They're like, why would the NWO help Sting? That makes no sense to me. Like, I was watching commentary being done by Grindhead Jim and Skeletroy, and they basically, I'm pretty sure they, at least Troy, voiced that same opinion, which Jimmy agreed with. I could be wrong, but I think they also did feel this. It's like, why the fuck would the NWO help Sting? Why? They were against him. I don't care if, like, ironically, him allowing them to help him makes the whole bit where he apparently said on Raw once that he was not here to represent WCW. That would be stupid. And this just takes that and then goes, nope, I was lying. I'm here as a WCW guy. And Sting loses. Which bugs me, because Triple H didn't need this win. I mean, really, neither of them did. Sting didn't really need to win, and Triple H didn't really need to win either. So this could have been a fucking draw for all I care. But, you know, I mean, at least it wasn't a clean win. But immediately after that, they shake, well, not immediately, but him and Sting shake hands, and it's... I was audibly yelling out, like, why the fuck would you shake hands with someone who had to smack you in the face with a sledgehammer to beat you? That doesn't make any sense. And then, like, yeah, you know. And that match went for 18 and a half minutes. And was the third match in on the main show. And again, it was boring as batshit as far as I am concerned. Then, after an extended concert that no one gave a shit about, we had AJ Lee and Paige beating the Bella Twins. The match went for 6 minutes. The only reason I liked it was because, well, like, it wasn't complete shit, but for one thing, keep Brie, as far away from the ring as possible, please. Nikki, she was fine, but there was a few botchy spots. AJ, as I said, AJ and Paige win, thank God. Because AJ manages to make, God, I can't even fucking remember which one it was, but she made one of them tap out anyway. So that left me at least satisfied, because the match should have been a title match. Not necessarily, not a tag match at all. It should have been like a 4-way title match or a 3-way title match with AJ, Paige, and Nikki, something like that. Next up, we had Cena versus Rusev for the US title. And my God, that fucking propaganda intro that Cena gets, where it's just jerking off America. It's like, come on. I thought Rusev's was laying it on thick, because holy crap, that like cannons everywhere and the fucking people dressed up to look like Russian soldiers and cannons, and apparently Rusev came out in a tank, but I totally missed it and I really don't care. And then Cena gets like this 5-minute fucking intro video that's basically just, I'm American and I'm American. I'm from America. And it's like, God damn it. As an Australian, that kind of shit bugs me, because it's like, you do realize that that the US is not your only audience, right, WWE? So other people, other characters taking pride in where they come from is fine. You don't have to always make them heels when they do that. And there are some that don't. But like, come on. I swear to God, they only did this because it was Cena. They needed him to get over so people would actually cheer him and not Rusev, and realize what Cena is supposed to represent in this match. So it looked like it worked to a degree, but yeah. Overall, this match was, from what I can recall, it was decent. But I only really cared because I wanted Cena to win. And he did. I mean, at first I did joke with the whole, Cena wins lol. But Cena had to win because the Rusev winning streak had run its course by now. Like, if Rusev had won, I would be so pissed off, because there's nowhere else for it to go. After he beats Cena, it's like, well, then what? If anything, what's sad is that I know that Rusev will have a rematch, lose, at least I hope, and then, knowing WWE, he'll probably be pushed to the main event scene, even though it took them, like, I don't know, 6 months for them to actually get people to hate Rusev. And that was even trying to do the bullshit Vladimir Putin cheap heat. It still took them about 6 months for the crowd to actually hate him. When someone takes that long to be hated, and for people to actually give a shit enough to hate them, what the fuck are you doing? Because it does not. Like, they knew it wasn't working, but they tried anyway, and I guess they finally got around to making it work. Or at least generally the crowd finally got so sick of them that they started booing them and it made it work. But good lord. Anyway, yeah, Cena wins. The US wins. Didn't give a shit about the storyline, but the match wasn't unwatchable. Then I'm pretty sure there was there was like, between that, I will briefly bring up that there was this whole long, drawn out 20-minute fucking segment with The Rock, Ronda Rousey, Triple H, and Stephanie. And it started with Triple H and Stephanie just doing the attendance record crap. And then going into this long-winded diatribe that no one cared about. And then The Rock came out and everyone started chanting, "This is awesome," because this crowd is fucking retarded and have no idea what that chant is supposed to signify, because they would chant "This is awesome" for anything. They would literally chant it for anything. So, yeah, Ronda Rousey kind of gets Steph in an arm lock because why not? And it kind of just ends. So that was basically pretty pointless. Aside from possible foreshadowing of Triple H versus The Rock, either within this year, maybe it's SummerSlam or something, which I guess would make sense. Or it's just like foreshadowing for WrestleMania 32, which, God. In that case, I will be rooting for Triple H, so yeah. Next up, match-wise, was The Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt. Undertaker wasn't completely horrible, hooray, but he still won, and that pisses me off. Bray Wyatt deserved and needed this win. The fact that he could not beat a broken down shell of a man Undertaker, and you can say, "Oh, but he looked pretty good and he did like this one thing and like these two things." Did you notice how quickly it took him to be exhausted in that match? He got like second, third, all the way up to 10th wins, but right at the start, he blew his load. He did the old school, and he did that thing where he gets clotheslined out of the ring and lands on his feet and stares at them. Those are like the only two signature Undertaker things that he really did. Aside, well, that and the choke slam and the setup, but that's about it. Aside from, well, non-finisher wise, he did like two of his signature things, and that was it. He didn't even do Snake Eyes, which I guess you could kind of justify the fact that he's just that old that he probably wouldn't have been able to hold Bray for that properly. But he managed to tombstone him twice. I do like that they actually allowed Bray to kick out of the first tombstone, and it wasn't just a one and done tombstone, because Bray needed that. But Bray still lost. And once again, I was screaming no and fuck you, WWE. Because Bray needed that win. The Undertaker is done, as far as I'm concerned. I do not anymore give a fuck about The Undertaker. So, I was rooting for Bray this entire match. I've given up on caring about The Undertaker. I was a huge fan of his, but at this point, he needs to call it quits. He needs to retire. It's just getting sad. And the main event was Brock Lesnar versus Roman for the WWE World Heavyweight title. And you should have seen how pissed off I was watching this match. I can fucking tell you. This match pissed me off to no end for pretty much the majority of it. Apparently Roman, when I wasn't looking, got in a good right hook or something. Because very early in the match, I like blinked and Roman had busted Brock Lesnar open with a punch, and then he got F5'd, sorry, and didn't go for a pin because, I don't know. And it basically turned into a squash for the next, well, let's see, how long did the match last? The match went 16 minutes. I can guarantee you about 13 minutes of that was Brock Lesnar beating the shit out of Roman Reigns, and the crowd loved it. So fuck the WrestleMania 31 crowd. They can fucking, well, you know what? I was going to say fucking die, but, that's a bit much. They can go get fucked by a rusty pitchfork. Might end with the same result as fucking dying, but hey, that's more specific. But, like, Roman, like, I am so annoyed with how Brock Lesnar has been booked lately that every time Roman started kicking the shit out of Brock Lesnar for even a brief period of time and busted him open, because he punched him so hard, his cheek was bleeding, and then he kneed him so hard in the face that he busted one of Brock Lesnar's lips. And I was just eating that shit up. I was so caught up in it. It was just, my inner sadist was coming out, and it was just like, yes, fucking kill him, you goddamn asshole, do it. And right near the end, it looks like all hope is lost that Roman Reigns will win, because I was like, if Brock Lesnar leaves champion, I will cancel my WWE subscription. And I was going to stick to that. But probably because they heard me, WWE went, okay, fine. We'll send out Seth Rollins. And I marked out so hard that my voice probably cracked, because holy shit, Seth made the night. Seth saved that main event, turning it into a triple threat match at the last minute, out of nowhere, in like the 11th hour. He comes in like the fucking two-faced Jesus he is, and saves us all from this abysmal main event by pinning Roman Reigns. And I kind of figured that was going to happen when Rollins came in. Like, I would have been all for him pinning Brock Lesnar, but let's face it, that was never going to happen. So Roman takes out Lesnar with a spear when Lesnar is trying to F5 Rollins, and Rollins basically just takes advantage by hitting Reigns with a curb stomp and wins. And that crowd went fucking insane. Thank God the pay-per-view ended that way. Like, a heel still walked out champion, but it was a heel who fucking deserved it. And again, that is exactly why I am now fine with Randy Orton beating Rollins, because it was basically a misdirect. Like, a lot of people would say, well, he lost, so clearly he's going to cash in. And a friend of mine, Grindhead Jim, basically predicted as such, I think, back when the Orton Rollins match happened. He basically said, well, okay, I guess he's pretty much got to be cashing in now. I didn't think he predicted that he'd actually like successfully cash in, but but yeah, Jesus Christ, like, I am so glad that pay-per-view ended on a positive note. So it's funny because that's 2 years in a row that a match was saved by someone who wasn't supposed to be in the match. I think pretty much. I don't even think WWE had that planned from the get-go. They were just like, okay, we're losing the crowd. This crowd is really pissed off about certain outcomes and certain other things, and we've just got to win them back. So they did that. I mean, yeah, the crowd was seen to be happy that Taker won, but they were cheering Bray as well. So that could have gone either way. But I'm pretty much just going to keep talking in circles if I keep saying that. So I'm just going to move on to final thoughts. This pay-per-view was not horrible, thank God, but it was forgettable for me. I'm not saying that anyone else will have the same opinion, but I saw a lot of people say that WrestleMania 30 was the best WrestleMania ever, and those people need to get back on their medication. I hate being the your opinion is wrong guy, but I just cannot believe how anyone could have enjoyed the entirety of WrestleMania 30. It had like 3 matches out of 8 that I liked. So that's 5 that I didn't. This had about, you know what? This had none. This had matches that I was like, well, that was okay. But no matches that I could flat out point out and say, that's a candidate for match of the night. None. A 9-match card, if you include the 2 pre-show matches. And the match that I enjoyed the most was probably the opening ladder match, but even that I kind of tuned out of for the most part. Because there'd be spots that would kind of happen and I'd almost miss them and have to wait for the replay and shit, and just if I had to even give a match of the night, I would only give it to the very specific end section of the main event where it turned into a triple threat match. That's it. That is the only thing worth watching, in my opinion. Okay, that's a bit cruel. The ladder match, watch. John Cena, Rusev, maybe if you like either of those guys. But Jesus Christ. This was painful to sit through. Because if I enjoy a story enough, I'm not going to question how stupid it is. I was questioning shit all throughout this pay-per-view. Whether it was generally booking decisions like Orton winning and fucking Triple H winning and The Undertaker winning, then, and if I cared enough, about the storylines and all that and whatever, then I'd be able to forgive some of the stuff that I am actually questioning, including the booking. If Bray had been given a hell of a lot, well, honestly, no. Bray losing the Undertaker will never be justifiable because the Undertaker had to be carried through that match. And as a friend pointed out to me, Bray Wyatt carried this feud on his back, on his own, with no one else, for 2 fucking months. And he loses. That is bullshit. And basically, that's what most of this pay-per-view felt like. A bunch of bullshit. And there was no Stardust versus Goldust, which would have been a fucking amazing WrestleMania match. At least I hope. But no, they just dropped that storyline out of nowhere and it hasn't shown up again since. And if it picks up again after WrestleMania, I will be both happy and at the same time extremely pissed off because it'll seem like they just ignored it just for the sake of doing a throwaway WrestleMania match. What the fuck? This might go down in history for me as one of the worst WrestleManias I've ever seen. Ever. Right there with WrestleMania 29 and honestly, for the most part, WrestleMania 30. 29 probably had at least one match that I liked. 31, none. None that I can say that I will happily rewatch. And you know what? That's what I'll go by. Absolutely none of these matches are memorable for the like I'll put it this way. Yes, there's memorable moments, but are you going to remember Jesus, fucked up there. Are you going to remember the entire match? I mean, okay, fine, no one will. But how many moments can you actually remember right now without looking from the opening ladder match? I can remember Dean going through the ladder, a suicide dive, and Wade Barrett hitting Stardust with a step from one of the a rung from one of the ladders, and like one thing Luke Harper did, one other thing Luke Harper did, I should say, because he did the suicide dive, where he did the Terry Funk thing, where he put the ladder on his head and spun around and hit people with it. That's like what, 4 or 5 spots in a match that lasted 13 minutes. If I'm having a hard time remembering shit from something that I spent most of my day watching, what the fuck's going on? I mean, yeah, I generally have a shitty memory, but if I really like something, I'm going to remember it. So the fact that this pay-per-view is basically forgettable makes it one of the worst pay-per-views I've ever seen in my goddamn life. And the main event would be, honestly, you know what? Yes, I will say that. The main event, until Seth Rollins came in and saved it, was destined to be the worst WrestleMania main event I've ever had to sit through. I don't know if what my plans are for Extreme Rules, but I can tell you that with the Ring of Fire, I've decided to, aside from pay-per-views, unless I get invited back to do stuff with Grindhead Jim and Skeletor for the 999 podcast, I'll pretty much just be, from now on, covering NXT like I planned to earlier this year and then subsequently gave up on. I'm going to try and make that work, even though it'll be a day late because now it airs the day I work. And I'm going to try and make that work. And if I don't do pay-per-view reviews with anyone else, then I will continue to do WrestleMania pay-per-view. Oh, sorry. Generally, pay-per-view reviews on the Ring of Fire. I have a Patreon if you care. I'll probably put a link in the description to it. Well, might as well, eh? If I'm fucking plugging it now. As I said in my predictions video, you don't have to. But if I get to $30 a month, you know how I have ads on these videos? Gone. If I get to $30 a month, that's 30 people donating $1 each. And I would be totally fine with that. $30 a month is quite a lot for someone who doesn't earn very much. Like every dollar would be greatly appreciated. Again, you don't have to, but hey, if you've got $1 to spare and you don't know what you're going to spend it on, throw it my way, and I will be forever grateful. So, for the Ring of Fire, I am Thomas Fireheart, and I will see you next time, which will hopefully be later this week.